Sorry, my last video cut out just as I was in the middle of answering one of the questions. The last question that I was answering was what made me want to get phalloplasty and what made me want to get it over metoidioplasty. And I was saying that phalloplasty just had the functions that I wanted as opposed to metoidioplasty, which I would always be wondering what if I had gone for phalloplasty. And what had really held me back from pursuing phalloplasty, first of all, was a whole bunch of myths I heard, like you'll lose sensation, it won't work, it doesn't look realistic, there's tons of complications, just a whole lot of scary myths that I heard from other people who didn't know about it or who hadn't done it themselves. And it wasn't until I actually reached out to people who had this procedure, especially people who had this procedure in Canada, that I started to feel more comfortable, and I realized that that was actually what I wanted. And the next question is, why did I choose Dr. Crane? Well, I'm from Canada, and being in Canada, I'll get into that with the insurance questions and all that, but just up until recently we only had one choice, and that was to go to Montreal for our bottom surgery. But they just opened it up to out of country, and Dr. Crane was one of the choices. I did some research of him. I actually had never heard of him until TransCare had called me and said that I could choose him as one of my choices. So I did a lot of research, and I liked that he was both a urologist and plastic surgeon, as opposed to my other choices at the time, Dr. Chen, who's just a urologist, and Dr. Schechter, I don't really know how to say his name, who I just hadn't heard many good reviews about. And then the Montreal doctor, which I also had heard some conflicting stuff about. So Dr. Crane was my best choice. And that leads into the next question. Was I pleased with having Dr. Crane as my surgeon? And yes, I was. I was really happy that I chose him. And going into that, I was a little bit nervous, which I will also talk more about in the other questions. But I'm glad I went to him. He treated me really well, answered all of my questions, was very respectful. I just had an all-around great experience. I didn't feel like he was neglectful or not doing what he was supposed to do or anything at all. All the staff was great, his office was great. I just had a good experience, and I'm glad it turned out that way. I know other people haven't, though, and I'm not saying that they're wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying that my experience was good, and it wasn't what I had heard from other people, even though I was expecting that. So don't believe everything you hear. Everyone's different. So the next set of questions are something that a lot of people wonder about, because I'm from Canada, and the way that we organize bottom surgery here is a lot different than in the States, where most of the people I've been talking to are from, and quite a number of people from the States are part of my group. So this will help kind of explain what goes on. So as far as my knowledge is from the States, you see if your insurance plan will cover it, and then you have your out-of-pocket and your deductibles and all these things. Not too sure how those work, but I just know that it's your individual insurance that covers it, and you have to be in like a network or something. So with Canada, it doesn't quite work that way. Did I still get provincial insurance even though I left Canada, is what the question was, and yes, I did. When I was going through the process of this, and when I got approved, I actually got a little pamphlet that said all about the insurance when I'm outside of Canada and how it worked, and I had to fill out a form that stated where I would be and pretty much gave me coverage for this surgery outside of Canada. Anything else that wasn't this surgery related, like say I had broken my arm while I was down there, that would need to be covered under like some travel insurance that I had gotten. Didn't need to use it, but that was just like as a backup in case something not related to the surgery came up. The question was, did I have any issues getting out of country funded? This person that asked the question had thought that Canadians could only go to Montreal or that they had to pay out of pocket. Not a lot of people know that, yes, now Canada is funding out-of-country surgeries for bottom surgery. This just started a little while ago, I think a year or two ago, and it started because the government, Transcare BC, they were looking at Montreal and realizing that they weren't getting the results that they had wanted, and so that they wanted to look elsewhere. And they had asked a couple people and found out that there were some good surgeons in the States, so they ended up picking these surgeons. I'm not too sure much about the process, but Transcare is the one that organizes everything for our surgeries. If you're transgender, you go through them. And they had called me and offered me to go outside of Canada for this when I had just started the process of applying for it. I had three choices. I had Dr. Shetner, Dr. Chen at the time when he was still working with Dr. Crane, and Dr. Crane, and the Montreal. But that's a different, you had to fill out another form and stuff. So, no, I didn't have any issues. Does Crane take insurance? Well, he took my insurance. My insurance is MSP. That's provincial insurance, I believe. It's just Canadian insurance, and it's for everyone in BC, where I'm from. How does insurance cover things in Canada? Does it cover everything? And what did I have to pay out of pocket? So, how trans surgeries get funded in Canada, there's a wait list and there's assessments. And I posted a little thing a while ago on my page. So for surgeries like top surgery and hysterectomy, you get a one assessment and then MSP has to approve you. For bottom surgery, you need two assessors. So I saw my doctor and then I saw, can't remember, it was a while ago, another assessor. They both approved me. Then they wrote to MSP saying that they approved me for the surgery, and then MSP would then reply with the approval or the non-approval. But in between those stages, oh, and then Transcare would get their approval and then book me with the surgeon. In between those stages, there was a wait list. When I first had my assessment, there's a wait list for that. Then after my assessment, there was a wait list for the second assessment. Then after that assessment, then there was a wait list to apply for funding for MS. No, then there was a wait list for me to pick my surgeon. Then I waited, and then I picked my surgeon. Then I had to wait for my consult with my surgeon. And then after that, I had to wait again, and then I had to apply for my paperwork. And then after that, I had to wait for the paperwork to come back. And then they would pick the surgery date, and then I'd have to wait for that date. So overall, it took me about 2 years. I got lucky because I got a cancellation date. Otherwise, it would have taken me probably 3 years. So it was a lot of waiting, and that's why it's covered. But they do cover most of everything. They covered my surgery, all of it. They covered my stay, and I was down in Texas for a month. And I was staying at a skilled nursing facility, so they covered that. They covered the food cost while I was there. They covered my medication while I was there. The only thing that they didn't cover the entire trip was my flight down there and back. But that was really cheap, so altogether the trip cost me about 300 Canadian, plus some extra expenses for if I wanted to go out and do anything. So this person said that they have seen some negative talk and lots of lawsuits about Dr. Crane, and they were concerned. So they're asking me, how was it, and is it being with Dr. Crane, and did any of this negativeness influence me? As I had said, it was great with Dr. Crane. The negative talk did influence me in the beginning because it was all I was reading. I hadn't heard much from people that had good experiences with Dr. Crane, maybe because they didn't talk about it as much. But I saw a lot of negative talk, and I, of course, heard about the lawsuits because a lot of trans people pursuing bottom surgery have heard about these lawsuits. I did a little bit more research into the complications, and I kind of talked to other people who were thinking about pursuing Dr. Crane. I also, when I was filling out all the paperwork and consenting and stuff, they had a video that I had to watch that talked about all of the complications and how common they are, and that really calmed me down a little bit. But to be honest, the whole time I was nervous up until I got there, just because people's words can have a huge influence on what you think, especially if you have never been or seen it in person. So, but when I had gotten there, I was much calmer. Like, Dr. Crane came and talked to me right before my surgery. I had my pre-op with him. He made me feel a lot more comfortable, and after, I could reach him easily if I had any issues. All of my post-ops, I felt comfortable with him. So I had a good experience, and I encourage other people that just see the negative to try and talk to people also that have had positive experiences. Because there are people that have had positive experiences, and negative ones tend to be echoed a lot more. But Dr. Crane was not neglectful for me, and he was not negative in any way. So everyone's experience is different, and just because one doctor's had some bad outcomes and some lawsuits does not make him an all-around bad doctor, and he should not just be seen as that. So that's the questions for the insurance and the rest of the procedure questions. I have a lot more, but the video is getting long, so I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to answer those.